Hello everyone, I'm Jacob Kaufman with Nerd on the Street. I used the Mate desktop environment for the last 2 weeks, and today I'm going to share my thoughts. Alright everyone, so as you probably know, because I'm very vocal about it, I usually use the KDE Plasma desktop environment on my computers running Linux. That's the desktop environment I prefer. GNOME is too simplistic for me, and I like my desktop environment to look good. I kind of want to stick to the mainstream. So KDE is an obvious choice, especially also because I like configurability. However, last weekend, just exactly 1 week ago now, Nerd on the Street did our 26-hour Extra Life 2017 live stream. It's the third year in a row we've done this super long telethon raising money for the St. Louis Children's Hospital. It went great. But last year what I did for the stream was I installed Ubuntu Mate on my desktop computer like the week before the stream so that I had just a nice stable operating system that would not take up many resources, because the most important thing for streaming is getting the stream out there. I don't care about eye candy on my broadcast computer. I care if the people watching the stream can see the camera that's hooked up to the computer. So this year we did technology a little bit differently at that stream. I actually streamed using my laptop instead of my desktop that we streamed with in 2016. So for 2017 I didn't want to reinstall my laptop's entire operating system. My desktop, I already had my laptop last year before the stream, so it wasn't a big deal wiping that out and putting Ubuntu Mate on my desktop. But my laptop is what I'm actually putting all of my stuff on. It's what's got all of my video projects I'm currently working on it. I've got a bunch of programs installed on it that have taken some time to get set up the way I like them, so I didn't want to actually reinstall my operating system. I thought about doing some partition stuff and installing Ubuntu Mate on a separate partition, but I ended up just installing the Mate desktop environment on my Arch Linux installation. And that's one of the great things about Arch, is that Arch is not tied to a specific desktop environment. If I was using Ubuntu and I wanted to switch to Mate, I would have to use the task selector program to switch from Ubuntu to Ubuntu Mate. I couldn't just uninstall GNOME and install Mate, staying on the same distribution. I'd have to change my distribution's flavor at the least. But Arch, you literally just type pacman remove KDE, pacman install Mate, and then you've got Mate running. And I did that about a week early just so I could get used to Mate, so that I would know what I was doing during the stream. The reason I didn't want KDE running during the stream is because KDE, as great as it is, sometimes does have problems. KWin crashes fairly regularly for me, embarrassingly often actually. And it's pretty often I have to right-click on the desktop and run kwin x11 -- replace from KRunner just to get my windows moving around the way they're supposed to move around when I click and drag them. It's been happening more and more recently, and I thought it was KDE. Now, after I switched to Mate, I ended up having a lot of the same problems I had on KDE, so I think it's just my graphics stack in general that's the problem and not KDE itself. But yeah, I wanted something a little bit lighter than KDE. I wanted something slightly more stable than KDE just for this one stream, and I am switching back to KDE this weekend. That's why I'm recording this video, because I want to go back to KDE, but I didn't want to do it before I recorded this video. Because Mate, I've been using my computer differently than I usually do with Mate, and I wanted to document that a little bit. So I'm not quite sure how this video is going to work. We've got the webcam recording in OBS there. We've got the audio coming through the Yeti. We've got a camera here pointed at my screens, because really it's difficult to capture what I'm doing with screen recording software, because I've got two screens. One of them's 4K, and then one of them's 1080p off to the side. And both of these are critical to how I use my computer. A lot of the problems that I have with KDE would go away if I only had one screen, but I don't. I have two screens, so hoping KDE gets a little better at that. But yeah, without further ado, we will start recording the desktop. This is my main screen, and this is where my panels are at. I have no panels on my secondary screen right now, which is interesting. So this is the setup of the Mate desktop environment, and like I said, I've got a very high DPI screen, so sorry if you can't see this super well. But up at the top left, we've got our applications menu, and this is actually where I launch a lot of my applications from now. There's no really type to search or anything in this menu. There are alternative menus you can install, but this default Mate menu does not have any search. It does have some basic type ahead, well, very basic type ahead, And yeah, you just go through each of the categories and you open up whatever program you want to open up. We've also got places here, and I know that you can put shortcuts to specific folders here. For instance, I put one to the videos folder, but honestly, quite often I'll just open up my home folder and go wherever I need to go. I don't actually I haven't spent a whole lot of time customizing Mate, putting shortcuts where I need and stuff, so this could be a lot more efficient than it actually is. And we've got system, and this is basically just for settings and like shutting down and stuff. That's under the system menu. Now the theme that I'm using here, is actually, see, look and feel, appearance. I've gone in, and what I did, this clear looks theme here is actually a custom theme. I actually selected the traditional OK theme, and I went and customized it, and I selected the clear looks window border, and then saved that as a custom theme. Now clear looks is the theme that I remember from Fedora 12 when I first started using Linux. However, I am aware this theme looks very antiquated. Here's the thing, I've been thinking a lot about this. This theme does its job. It works because I can use my computer using this theme, and honestly, when I first switched to this theme, I thought it looked pretty crappy. You know, with the font at the top that's bold and slightly too wide because of the bold, and just the light blue window bar with the gray background on the window itself. Compared to KDE, Mate looks really bad, and you can see I haven't even gone through and adjusted everything. OBS knows to use this new clear looks theme I have selected. Simple screen recorder, it's still using Breeze Dark, sort of. It's using the Breeze Dark color scheme, even though it's using the clear looks widget styles. And the reason I haven't gone through and tweaked everything is because I am going to install KDE again. I didn't want to screw everything up for when I go back to KDE. But I actually seriously considered staying on Mate for an extended period of time. Originally I was going to go back to KDE a week ago, and then I figured, hey, I'll stick in Mate another week. This has been kind of nice. Now, I have been missing some things from KDE, such as virtual desktops. Now, Mate does have virtual desktop support. As you can see in the bottom right, though, I've deleted all but one of my virtual desktops because Mate lacks one important feature. As you can see, like I said, I have two screens here, and in KDE, I pin all of my windows on the second screen so that they stay there no matter what virtual desktop I'm in. Mate does not have the ability to pin a window to all your virtual desktops. Therefore, I cannot use virtual desktops on Mate. It's just completely broken. With GNOME pins the windows automatically on the second screen. I don't even have to click the pin button on GNOME. It allows me to just have virtual desktops on my main screen. KDE does not have that feature built in, but it's got a workaround that I can use to achieve the same effect. Mate does not have that functionality at all, so virtual desktops are just out. And as you can see at the bottom of the screen here, I've got a lot of stuff going on right now. You know, if you normally see my videos, I just keep a lot of windows open in like 9 different virtual desktops, and don't worry about it. But at the bottom of my screen right here, I've got OBS right here is what I'm recording with. Simple Screen Recorder. Audacity I've got minimized. This is on the other screen. I've got Blender open right now. It was in the middle of a Blender render earlier. I paused it. Minimize that again. I've got Notes. That's on the second screen, but it's minimized. We've got Chromium minimized right now. I was working on uploading things to Vimeo earlier, and also taking a look at some other animation software. Rocket Chat and Telegram are on the secondary screen, and then Firefox. We've got 12 different windows open with Firefox right now. So you've got Composer Weekly Live Chat. You'll be seeing that on the tech channel soon, but I had this open earlier to make this forum post, and I was keeping the window open just to see if anybody was responding to it. So whereas before I would have just left this open in its own virtual desktop, now I'm keeping it minimized. I'm in a Stargate forum right here, taking a look, seeing if I can find some sound effects for displaced. Normally I'd have that in a displaced virtual desktop. I would just leave this window open, but instead I have it minimized, so it's not taking up clutter. We've got the Dailymotion API Explorer here. I was doing some things with our Patreon page and with nerdonthestreet.com earlier. Once again, just keeping it minimized because I'm not working on it right now, and normally that would just stay in a virtual desktop for Nerd on the Street. So I actually have seriously changed the way that I work. Instead of just leaving windows open, I've gone back in time to before I knew virtual desktops, and I've started keeping things minimized that I'm not working on right now. And it's interesting to do. It does force me to kind of not jump around as much, actually. I find myself more likely to actually finish a task instead of just doing a little bit on it and switching to something else. because in KDE it's very simple to just go to a different virtual desktop. Oh, I get bored of this, go to a different virtual desktop. Now, if I want to switch tasks and I've got 5 or 6 windows associated with each task, that's like 5 or 6 windows I have to minimize, then I have to go pull up all of the related windows now that I want to work on. It's more work to switch between tasks, but then as a side effect of that, I might say, alright, well, I'll just stay on the same task. I've already got all these windows pulled up, so I'll just stay here and finish what I'm doing. At the end of the day, I do think that the extra work is not worth the workflow improvement. That's part of the reason I'm switching back to KDE. But yeah, it was interesting to take a look at. Another one is file browsers, and these change a lot more than the Firefox windows, because like I said, if I wanted to open up an Extra Life recording right now, I'd go to Places, Videos, Extra Life 2017, Full Recording, and here we are. Here's our full recording of Nerd on the Street Extra Life 2017. And then I go and minimize that to do something else. Now I have 3 different file manager windows open. And whereas Firefox, you know, a tab in Firefox, I'm going to want to find that specific tab. With the file browser, sometimes I'll just say, I'll forget what I'm working on with the file browser, and I'll just X out of all my file browsers and say, alright, I'll come back later and just go and find whatever folder it is again if I do want to go back to the Extra Life stuff. I'll just open it back up and get back there manually later. Once again, not as convenient as just leaving everything up and where I want to have it, like I do in KDE. Not as convenient as just leaving it there all the time. But it is a valid workflow option, so I thought I would document that. We're going to pause the screen recording, and I'm going to go ahead and switch that to my secondary screen just to show you what's going on over there in a little bit more detail. This is what I have right now. I've got Telegram pulled up right here. Here's a picture of my dogs. And I've got KSysGuard running. KSysGuard is still the better system monitor than whatever Mate comes with. But I've got a temperature gauge running right now. I've got system load here and my process table. But I've got that running. I've got Rocket Chat here for Nerd on the Street stuff. I've got a terminal right here connected to DigitalOcean. And sometimes I do throw things that are like ongoing tasks. I'll just throw them over on the second screen so that I can keep an eye on them. Here I'm actually downloading somebody else's Extra Life stream because I'm missing part of it because I'm recording this video. Somebody else that's doing their stream today. And then I do have a couple of other windows that are minimized right now on the second screen. Just like my notes and stuff, there's some sensitive stuff in there, so I'm not going to unminimize that. But yeah, in KDE, I actually had a bar on the second screen with all of the icons for everything on this screen. And part of my issue with KDE, part of the reason I was kind of getting ticked off at it, was because the task manager on that second screen, sometimes if I turn my main monitor off, then the second screen knows that it's the only monitor, and then it puts all the windows over there. And then when I turn the main monitor back on, then it puts all the windows back on the main monitor, and then the task selector on the second screen gets broken in KDE, sometimes basically, to where I'll have windows on the second screen, but it doesn't let me switch between them with the task monitor, and then the main screen doesn't let me switch between them because it's not on the main screen. The main screen task monitor only has windows on the main screen, and then the second screen's task monitor just craps itself, and then I can't switch between windows without dragging the windows around and finding them beneath each other, which is pretty major of a bug, something that I would not expect to see in GNOME. But KDE's multi-monitor support is lacking compared to GNOME. I'm not prepared to switch to GNOME though, because I still like to be able to have a nice looking theme and also customize anything. So I am sticking with KDE. But yeah, with Mate, is this better than KDE or is this worse for second screen functionality? Because on the one hand, there's no task switcher bar. If I want to minimize the system monitor and then I want to maximize it again, I have to bring my mouse all the way over to the other screen and click it from the other screen. And the other screen just has all of my windows listed no matter which screen they're on. Screen number 1 just lists all of the windows, whether they're on screen 1 or screen 2. Is that better than KDE or is that worse? It's worse in the sense that it's less organized in theory, but in practice it's kind of better because it doesn't break. I can turn my main monitor off in Mate and it'll move all the windows over to the laptop screen, and then if I turn the monitor back on, it moves all the windows back to the main screen exactly where I had them. It's great. It works wonderfully. And this task manager never loses windows. You know, this task selector, it never loses windows. How could it lose windows? Because its job is just list all the windows. It doesn't pay attention to the screen. It doesn't pay attention to the virtual desktop. It is a simpler task, and it's doing it way better than KDE does the complicated task with some more rough edges to it. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and switch back over to the bigger screen here in the screen recording, and really this is just gonna be a pretty simple video. I wasn't actually showing you how to do much. I was just showing you that I used my computer like this for 2 weeks. And the theme thing really did make me think. Because like I said, this looks really bad. Quite honestly, I don't sit down and say, man, this looks great. KDE, sometimes I just like would sit down and look at my computer and say, wow, this theming is on point, but I don't do that with Mate. But with Mate, I know that everything works great. You know, these menu bars, these title bars are smaller than KDE. This is like half the size of the top bar on a KDE window, on a Plasma window. And it gets out of my way and gives me more space to do my work. These panels get out of my way and give me space to do my work, even though there's 2 of them instead of 1. There's no animations here, and even though maybe that doesn't look as nice without any animations, I don't need animations. I need my computer to be responsive, and it feels a lot more responsive without the animations. And I actually did consider staying on Mates. Now, one of the reasons I'm switching back to KDE is because I feel like as somebody who is trying to publicize Linux, as somebody who's trying to demonstrate using Linux and KDE, somebody who's trying to advocate for using Linux on the desktop, I feel like I kind of have an obligation to make my desktop look nice, even if I don't actually care about it, because I know that other people do care about how their computers look. Most people don't want to use a system that looks like crap, even if it does work great. And I think even if I'm getting all my work done in Mate, if I make a screen recording in Mate just about something completely unrelated, say I made my screen recording on multi-streaming. And by the way, I just did remember something else that Mate cannot do that KDE does that's kind of essential with this huge monitor. You can see there's tons of real estate here. One of the most essential things I do in KDE Plasma is drag windows to the corner and pin them to the corner of a screen. Now with Mate, I can drag a window to the top of the screen to maximize it. I can drag a window to the side of the screen to put it halfway on the screen. But I cannot drag a window to the corner. The corner does nothing. It's either maximized or it's half. And with a screen this big, you know, a half-sized window is really not any better than a full-sized window. This is still ridiculously large for anything that I'm doing. A quarter of a 4K screen is still 1080p, so I like that KDE gives me the corner snapping ability. That's kind of one of the things I can't live without with this huge screen, because I'll find myself, when I pin one of these windows, I cannot go and adjust the height after it's been pinned. I have to unpin it, you know, align it to the top right of the window without having it snap, which is kind of difficult because it wants to snap. Then I go and just manually try and size it out to where this is about a corner of the screen, but it ends up looking a lot worse. Once again, it works because the window's there and it's on my screen, and I can arrange things in such a way that I can see everything I want to see at the same time. But I do like the ability in KDE to just quickly snap to a corner. But yeah, if I were to make that video I made about multi-streaming, restreaming, making your own restreaming server, I recorded that video in KDE, and I have my very nice Breeze Dark theme in that video. Now, I didn't talk about KDE, I didn't talk about Plasma, I didn't talk about Breeze Dark, but if you're watching that video and you think it looks nice, and then you ask in the comments, what OS are you using, and I say I'm using Arch Linux with KDE Plasma, now you know that Plasma looks good and Linux can look good on your desktop. Whereas if I made that video in Mate, nobody would ask what operating system I'm using, because it honestly doesn't look that well. I can still do the same thing. I can still make a restreaming server in Mate, but if it doesn't look as good, then I'm going to have less people watching the videos wanting to put Linux on their own desktops. Now, I actually considered putting this up to a vote for you guys, and letting you decide if I use KDE or Mate. Basically asking you if you think I have an obligation to make my desktop look good, or if you think it's more important that I get my work done. Since I had the idea to put that to a vote, I did discover that Mate does have some of the same problems that KDE does. Things crash sometimes. OBS crashes sometimes. It's mainly video stuff that's the problem. But yeah, I am going to go back over to KDE. I might reset my KDE configs, or I might not. I might reset the KDE configs just to try and get it a little bit more stable, though, because I've been using the same install for a while. And I'm going to uninstall Mate, install Plasma again, and go back to my usual workflow. But yeah, since you guys see me using KDE all the time, I thought I would throw this out there. I'm not just stuck on KDE. I do use other desktop environments sometimes, and I do enjoy using other desktop environments sometimes. Considering that I am so vocal about my desktop of choice, I think it's a good thing that I do try other ones from time to time, and I do stay up to date with where other desktop environments are at in terms of functionality and how they look and everything. So yeah, let me know any thoughts you have about this video down in the comments below. Otherwise, this was a very simple video. If you like little insights like this, head on over to nerdclub.knots.co. Consider joining the Nerd Club for just $3 a month, and I'll be able to make more videos. But yeah, for now, that's everything. So I'm Jacob Kaufman with Nerd on the Street, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.